Hey, Zach here, and I am so glad to see you all. This has been an absolutely wild ride so far, but honestly, I'm hoping things settle down soon enough. You see, after Adrianna found out her mother was sick, I offered to drive her to her family's place. The drive, barring a gross motel, was great. Our arrival at her parents' house, though, well, let's just say that was less great. It turns out her insane ex-fiancé told her mother some crazy story about Adrianna. So, Adrianna's mom had this terrible idea to pretend to be sick to get Adrianna home and reunite them at a surprise engagement party. Yeah, that's what we walked into, an engagement party. There was a huge argument and Michael, the stalker ex of hers, was run out of the house while Adrianna dragged me to her room to cool off. Of all the stupid, harebrained, ridiculous things to do, Adrianna raged, as much to herself as to me. She picked up a pillow and screamed into it before throwing it back onto the bed. I sat uncertainly on the corner of the bed. "Can I get you something?" I offered. "Food? A drink, maybe?" She sighed and collapsed dramatically onto the bed. "I'm so sorry," she said. "This is a disaster." It could be worse," I replied. "We could still be in that gross hotel room." Adrianna laughed and threw a pillow at me. "And upside, your mom is okay," I continued. She rolled her eyes. "Physically, maybe, but mentally, I don't know." Someone knocked lightly on the door, then opened it a crack. "It's just me," Sophia called out. "Can I come in?" "Sure," Adrianna huffed. "And then you can explain why you didn't stop the madness, or warn me." I tried to stop it, but you know Mom just really liked Michael, and I swear all she talks about at the moment is how much she wants grandkids." Sophia shrugged and leaned back against the door. "I think retirement is making her crazy." "And you still didn't warn me?" "I thought it would be funny." Sophia shrugged and looked at me. "Anyway, Zach, welcome to the family." Thanks, I think. I couldn't tell if she was serious or not. She smiled. "You should come meet them properly. Everyone decided to just eat all the food and party anyway. Such a big scandal, we'll be talking about it forever." This is humiliating," Adrianna muttered. "Fine, I'll introduce him." So after cleaning up from the road a little, we went back to what was now a full party. "Zach, this is my father Joe and my mother Martha," Adrianna introduced me. Joe shook my hand very firmly and said a very brief hello before wandering back towards a group of Adrianna's uncles in the living room. Her mother, on the other hand, was clearly still not over Michael. "You know, teaching, it's such a hard job. Michael did investments and always had a lot of time for Adrianna," she told me. "Have you thought about living in Texas? California is such a long way away." "Well, I managed to have time to drive Adrianna here from California when we thought you were ill," I replied and then regretted it. Martha gave me an icy look and walked over to some women fixing drinks. "Way to go, Zach," I muttered to myself. Adrianna was sat talking quietly with her sister in the corner, so I made up a couple of plates of food and took them over. I could feel the eyes of the various family members at the party staring at me and heard my name muttered a couple times as I dodged through the crowd. "I think I upset your mom," I told her as I handed her the plate. "Uh-oh, what happened?" Adrianna asked. "I think mostly just not being Michael." She rolled her eyes. "She'll get over it." Sophia laughed and stole an empanada off Adrianna's plate. "Yeah, maybe if you two have kids." "Don't start, if she hears you," Adrianna warned. "That bad?" I asked. "That bad," Adrianna nodded. The food was incredible. I ended up getting another couple of plates, despite the stares. Adrianna took me around the relatives just once at high speed to say hello to as many of them as possible. Then we retreated back to Sophia for a while. Martha still glared daggers at me when she could, and Joe just kind of ignored me. It wasn't until things wound down and most people went home that either of them spoke to me again. "So, Zach, we have a guest bedroom made up," Martha said. Unmarried couples do not share rooms in my house." She looked at me like she was ready for a fight, but I just nodded. It was too late in the evening to argue, and I didn't want to make the already terrible impression I had made on Martha worse. Night, Adrianna yawned. We hugged and I dropped a kiss on the top of her hair. The guest room I was shown to was nice, but after stuffing myself with a huge amount of food, I couldn't sleep. I must have spent about an hour of tossing and turning before I decided to get up and get something to drink. It was weird walking through the house in the dark, but I didn't want to wake anyone else up. I managed to stub my toe nastily on the corner of a sideboard and groaned as quietly as I could. In the kitchen, the idea of making a cup of warm milk or something seemed unrealistic. I could barely find the refrigerator and half blinded myself getting a can of soda when the light came on. The idea of sleep felt like it was getting further and further away rather than closer. So, sipping my soda, I strolled out onto the porch. It was a hot night, but a kind of comfortable dry heat that relaxed me as I settled into a chair to watch the stars. I could kind of understand why people liked country living. The next thing I knew, there was the sound of birds calling loudly, and I sat up blinking. The sun was just about over the horizon, and it turned out I'd ended up sleeping the night on the porch rather than the guest room. As I stretched my aching muscles, the screen door swung nearby and someone else came out from the house. I recognized Adrianna's old t-shirt and stood up, smiling. She was busy watering the plants and hadn't seen me, so I decided to sneak up. I crept across the porch and grabbed her in a bear hug from behind, lifting her off her feet. "Gotcha!" She let out a huge scream and I laughed. "It's just me," I said, dropping her down to the ground. I stopped laughing when she turned around, and it wasn't Adrianna at all. It was her mother. You, she spluttered, her face nearly purple. "I'm so sorry." I apologized, backing away as fast as I could. "Beast? Animal?" she shouted. There was a thunder of footsteps from inside the house. Adrianna, her dad, and her sister all running outside. "Martha, what happened?" Joe asked. She pointed an accusatory finger at me. "He grabbed me, pervert." Everyone turned to stare at me, Adrianna and Sophia looking confused and Joe looking outraged. No, I mean, I did, hug Martha," I explained frantically. "But I didn't think she was Martha." "Telling lies now too? Who else would I be?" she snapped. "Well, that t-shirt, I mean, from behind you look a lot like Adrianna," I said. Sophia clapped her hands over her mouth to muffle her laughter. Adrianna bit her lip, but I could see how hard she was trying not to laugh. "This isn't funny, Sophia," Joe scolded, but Sophia just laughed harder. He turned back to me. "Zach, you seem like an okay guy. I thank you for driving Adrianna here, but I think maybe you should go home now." "What? Dad? That's totally unfair," Adrianna protested. "He didn't do anything wrong." "Nothing wrong? He grabbed me." "Oh, still no apology for faking your health, and now you're making some stupid accusation." Around me, the air became filled with everyone arguing, and I looked longingly at the cozy porch chair where I slept for the night. Maybe the ground would swallow me up? That would be too good. "Adrianna, this is my house. This is the end of the discussion," Joe roared finally. Adrianna's eyes narrowed. She walked over to me and grabbed my hand. She then pressed it against her stomach. "You can't make him leave. We're having a child." "Grandbaby?" Martha sounded hopeful all of a sudden. I froze in panic and stared at Adrianna. She caught my eye and I could read the command to play along in her pupils. Yeah? I said weakly. Martha shrieked like a child and ran towards the two of us, grabbing us in a tight hug. "Oh my goodness! Oh, a grandbaby!" she repeated, kissing me on the cheek as if she hadn't been all in favor of having me dragged off her property a minute ago. She began to cry loudly, and Joe wrapped her in an arm around her shoulders. "Wow, sis, how far along are you?" Sophia asked. She looked a lot less convinced than Joe and Martha. "Just a few weeks," Adrianna lied smoothly. "It's why we didn't say anything. Right, Zach?" I nodded. "Yeah, we wanted it to be a surprise." "Oh, mijita, this is so exciting," Martha gushed. "But you two should be getting married if a baby is coming." I ran out of words and stared into Adrianna's anxious eyes. "We'll get that all done later," she said firmly. "You know, with everything going on, I don't think we can even start planning." Man, I was crazy impressed with how fast Adrianna could think on her feet. Left to me, I think I'd have ended up not just thrown off the property, but also missing a few teeth if Joe could help it. "No, don't be stubborn. We can have it here," Martha insisted. "Sophia, you start phoning around your aunts for me. And Joe, isn't your friend a justice of the peace? I think we could make it happen." She smiled so sweetly at Adrianna and I that I couldn't help smiling back. She, Sophia, and Joe went back inside, leaving Adrianna and I staring at each other with horror. I took back being impressed with her quick thinking. What the heck were we going to do now?